The one guy who really especially kind of jumps out to me as someone I think is going to fit in very nicely with the Eagles and the Eagles fans is Landon Dickerson. And I know everyone's kind of like, oh, well, the injuries. Just trust me, in terms of personality, aggressiveness, the way that he plays, Eagles fans are going to fall in love with this guy. He was a treat to cover at Alabama, and I'll tell you what, I know Eagles fans. I mean, I was actually born in Camden. One of my best friends, one of the biggest diehard Eagles fans that there is. This guy's got more. He's got personality coming out of his ears. You guys are gonna love him.
Tis a end of the week because we'll be off tomorrow. Edition of Birds 365. John McMillan, Jody McDonald here with you. We'll get back into the Eagles here. We got on both a wrestling and a basketball tangent last segment. Sorry about that. We'll get back to the Birds here, and we'll take a look from a different lens. New birds coming in from new climes. That would be down south in Roll Tide area, Alabama. We go to Tuscaloosa to talk to Chris Walsh, who covers them for Sports Illustrated. He knows a lot about Jalen Hurts, about Devonta Adams, about Landon Dickerson. How are these guys going to fit in up here in the all-cold north? Is this going to be a nice transition for the Alabama players, or do you think they got some work ahead of them?
Oh, I think they're going to be just fine. And the one guy who really especially kind of jumps out to me as someone I think is going to fit in very nicely with the Eagles and the Eagles fans is Landon Dickerson. And I know everyone's kind of like, oh, well, the injuries. Just trust me, in terms of personality, aggressiveness, the way that he plays, Eagles fans are going to fall in love with this guy. He was a treat to cover at Alabama, and I'll tell you what, I know Eagles fans. I mean, I was actually born in Camden. One of my best friends, one of the biggest diehard Eagles fans that there is. This guy's got more. He's got personality coming out of his ears. You guys are gonna love him.
Yeah, I've already met Landon a couple times, obviously via Zoom at this stage of the games, Christopher. But you can tell the personality shines through. That's one thing the Eagles have talked about, not only with Landon but also Devonta Smith, is this culture. And obviously, it starts with Nick Saban, Alabama. So you can talk about it a lot, but during COVID-19, Landon was the guy who made the makeshift gym down there so everybody could get together, work out together. That culture thing, is that overrated? How important is it? And how important are these guys? Obviously, we have veteran players here. I mean, they're not, but the Eagles are in the transition phase, and these are the type of young players that are leaders. Is that fair to say?
No, it absolutely is. And you can throw Jalen Hurts in there as well because, he actually graduated from Alabama before he transferred over to Oklahoma. Just really good kid. And that's kind of the theme with these guys that you all have with all these, Landon and Devonta Smith. Just really good kids, really good guys. And they are three of the hardest, the three names I just mentioned, three of the hardest workers that you're going to find anywhere. So, and that's going to rub off on teammates. Devonta Smith, especially. I mean, you go back and you look at the 2019 team, and they had the four outstanding wide receivers and so forth. He was named the team captain as a junior with that incredible lineup, and he came back this year and he was named a team captain again. Don't look past that. I know a lot of people are going to do that, but when it's all said and done, and people look back at the 2020 team and the 2019 team, the number of players that are going to end up in the NFL and have prolific careers is going to be staggering. It's just, they had so much talent that Saban was able to accumulate. And just because they had talented players, that doesn't mean you're automatically going to be a really good team in college football. It's not an automatic thing. And just these guys have got it. They get it, and they're gonna help change the culture there.
Chris, Devonta, question for you, because leading up to the draft, a lot of people were questioning this kid's 166 pounds. 166 pounds. How can you play in the National Football League at 166 pounds? Well, he won the Heisman Trophy in the toughest conference in college football at 166 pounds.
Yeah.
I tried to fight it off for most of the critics that were out there, but he is built the way that he is. I'm sure he was even skinnier than that when he first showed up in Tuscaloosa. Were there attempts to put some body weight on? Were there guys working with him to try and get bigger? At some point, you might just say, well, he is what he is, and we got to accept it. And, oh, by the way, he's one of the best players on the planet. What was it like from the time he showed up until he came back, played his senior year, 4 full years in Alabama? Did you actually see growth? Is there a chance that he can go from 166 to 174 here in Philadelphia?
I don't think he's going to gain too much weight. And it's, I mean, they tried to get him to gain weight, and they tried all sorts of different things. And the thing is, it's just that's his physical makeup. I mean, that's just the way that he is. And I bet he gains a little bit of weight over the years, but I'll go back to I covered 3 NFL teams before I covered Alabama, and one guy that I will never forget as a player that he reminds me of is Isaac Bruce. And just he was not that big of a player too, and all he did was just burn everybody. And talking to scouts and so forth, NFL personnel, when they started to really kind of catch on to how good this guy is, one of the favorite lines that I heard from somebody was, well, okay, yeah, he's small, but you got to catch him, and they can't catch him. So it doesn't really matter that much. And he is just such an outstanding player and does so many things right. And it was really funny, watching him kind of develop, especially with these other guys. I mean, Jerry Jeudy was known as being the route runner. Henry Ruggs was the speed guy. Jalen Waddle was, Mr. Electricity. And then, everyone was trying to pin a label on Devonta Smith. They were kind of be like, well, he's just kind of a combination. He's just darn good is what it just boils down to. And he works so hard. And I can't emphasize enough.
Now, Christopher, I want to tell you a little story. Gary Cobb, I don't know if you remember him, but he was the ex-NFL linebacker, played for the Eagles, played for about a decade in the NFL. He's still around Philadelphia, covers the Eagles. We're at rookie camp. We're getting our first look at Devonta Smith. And, Gary's like, man, he's got to get some sweatpants. His legs are so small.
Yeah.
And my concern is, here's my concern. It's not 166 pounds. I agree with you with the Isaac Bruce comparison. Some people have even gone to Marvin Harrison because he's a great route runner. But he doesn't play like he's 166 pounds. He plays like he's 200 pounds. He's not like Deshaun Jackson. He runs all the routes. He does everything. He's a well-rounded receiver. So my one concern is 166 pounds is 166 pounds. And when they do catch you, even if it's one time out of 100, does that concern you at all?
Not too much. Because for the most part, the size of defensive backs in the NFL, pretty much the same size he played in the SEC this year. Remember, Alabama played an SEC-only schedule this season, the year that he won the Heisman. So the quality of opponents couldn't have been any higher, really. I think my concern would be more of, maybe him going over the middle and, trying to go up to get a ball and leaving himself a little bit vulnerable and taking a really nasty hit, say in the ribs. And that, to me, I think there's a greater chance of something like that happening or getting, a headshot, and I really hope it doesn't happen, than really the weight issue.
Now, real quick on Jalen Waddle, wanted to follow up because there are a lot of people, and you're in Alabama, so I'll ask you. They were saying, Jalen was supposed to be the guy in Alabama, and then he got hurt. Devonta sort of took over. But you look at that wide receiver room, and how talented it was going back to the guys you mentioned, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. What was the plan in Alabama? Was Jalen supposed to be sort of the wide receiver number one, and then Devonta sort of just seized it?
No, not at all. In fact, it was Devonta was he had been a starter already, and this was the first year that Jalen Waddle was going to start. So, I mean, it really was Devonta Smith's group in large part. Jalen put up better numbers over the first 4 or 5 games. And I think a lot of that had to do with just teams are trying to figure out they hadn't quite figured out how to stop him. They hadn't really done the film study because there really wasn't that much film study really to go by kind of thing. And then, Steve Sarkisian was a master at, we're going to take advantage of this kind of thing. So Devonta Smith was already kind of the guy, but he really took off after Jalen Waddle got hurt. And, there's no denying that, but it was amazing to watch how he kind of put the passing game, if you will, on his shoulders. And he was just like, I'm just going to kind of take this over. And nobody could stop him. I mean, it really took that for everyone to kind of figure out how good that he is. Because, I mean, a year ago, kind of like what I was alluding to before, and everyone was still kind of trying to figure out, Jeudy won the Blitnikoff Award, and he was supposedly like this incredible route runner, and he was, but it took for Devonta to kind of, I don't want to say be on his own, but that's really what it took for everyone to really kind of learn in that respect, and he just thrived, and he just kept going. And, the next guy is going to be at Alabama's a guy named John Mechie, who also had a great year last year. But it's just the whole dynamic changed, and still no one can stop him.
Mechie will be a top of the first-round pick this upcoming year. Mark it down. Chris Walsh, our guest here on Birds 365. Prior to the draft, I think most Eagle fans believed that the Birds were going to be taking a kid from Alabama, but they didn't necessarily think it was going to be a wide receiver. Instead, I think they believed it was going to be a cornerback, which Eagles still have a need, these couple months later. Patrick Surtain was off the board at number 9. I think that came as a surprise to most of the folks here in the Delaware Valley and maybe across the NFL. Broncos going cornerback there. I don't think many people predicted it. So the Eagles never really even had a shot at Surtain. What kind of a pro cornerback is he going to be? Did he deserve to come off the board before a guy like Devonta Smith?
Well, his dad was an all-pro player, and he has the potential to be better than his dad, to be honest. And that's not a comparison that I make lightly. I mean, Patrick Surtain's one of those guys that when I was covering the NFL, I remember just really how good that he was. He reminds me a lot of Marlon Humphrey now with the Ravens, who's an outstanding corner. He's going to be very solid. He's going to be a rock at that position. Honestly, I thought there was a real good chance somebody might trade up to try to get Patrick Surtain, just because in my mind he stood out that much from the rest of the cornerback field, with one or two possible exceptions. It's just kind of what the priority is now. But the way the game's going, you've got to have those, electric, playmakers, guys like Waddle, guys like Devonta Smith, guys like Najee Harris. And when Alabama had 3 or 4 of them, the same year, I mean, national championship.
I do want to talk to you about Jalen Hurts. Obviously, he's going to take over this team as the quarterback one. The one thing everybody says, Christopher, everybody, natural-born leader, Javon Hargrave, defensive tackle, said it yesterday to us on Zoom. People gravitate towards Jalen Hurts. Did you notice that at the college level? And how impressive was he when he lost the job to Tua? Because most guys would sulk in that type of situation. Yeah,
and for the most part, he was outstanding. And he's a good quarterback. And the funny thing was, the year that he, after he lost his starting job, he still became a better quarterback during that year. In fact, he really grew a lot. And when he got into the game near the end of the season, SEC championship, I think it was, you could really see the difference in how much better that he had gotten. He is a leader, and he is a guy that people are going to rally around and gravitate to. I'm like everyone else. I'm still a little bit in shock in the way things played out a little bit there, but I'm really excited for him that he got the opportunity, and for Alabama to suddenly have three guys from that quarterback room a couple of years ago. We're all looking at maybe being starting quarterbacks really, really soon. Who knows? Mac Jones in New England. I'm not going to say he's going to start this year, but Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts and Mac Jones. I mean, holy cow! What a terrific group. They're all outstanding.
Understood. And yes, Eagle fans should have a little interest in Tua Tagovailoa because of some draft maneuvering back and forth, trading up, trading back. The Eagles actually have the Dolphins' first-round draft pick this upcoming draft. Mm-hmm. I'm a Tua fan. I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he should have won the Heisman in his final year at Alabama. They gave it to Murray. It was close between the two. I would have given my vote to Tua. I thought he had a quasi-disappointing rookie year. I know he's making a lot of news today, speaking out yesterday. He didn't feel confident enough to check out of plays last year. He just ran whatever was sent in. He's going to be a different quarterback this year. Good to hear, and I just believe he's better than what he showed last year. You had that young man down there for a couple of years as well, including winning a national championship. Throwing it to our guy now, Devonta Smith. You expect Tua to be that much better in year number 2 with the Dolphins?
Yeah, I really do. And, the thing that people really aren't talking about is, he won, I think he went 6-3 last year as a starting quarterback, and that was after coming off the hip injury, and he really didn't have an offseason. He didn't have the time to work with his new teammates. And, I mean, it showed, and he did the best that he could, and they kind of kept things close to the vest. But this guy makes throws that are just unbelievable, and he could put the ball just about anywhere. Of the three, in my mind, he's the most exciting player to watch. And I was watching a little bit of that Zoom session yesterday with the Dolphins. You can see a little bit more maturity. You can see definitely more confidence, and he's getting more accustomed to everything around him, the offense, and you could tell last year was kind of patchwork. He was just trying to figure things out, and they were keeping it really, really simple for him and just trying to get by kind of thing. This year, it's. I think you're going to see a big difference. I think it's going to be Tua's offense, and you're going to see more of the true Tua Tagovailoa with the Dolphins.
By the way, Christopher, do you ever step back and say, what the heck am I watching here? We just talked about the wide receiver room, the quarterback room. Can you tell Nick to take it easy on some people? I want more competition. So, number one, but I do want to go old school Alabama with you here.
Sure.
Kind of old school. Julio Jones.
Yeah.
First ballot Hall of Famer. Will be whenever he decides to hang it up 5 years after. Once out of Atlanta. This is one of the I think he's the most physically dominant receiver in the NFL since Calvin Johnson. How much do you think he's got left? And have you paid attention to that situation and where it's going with Julio in Atlanta?
Yeah, let me give you a quick let me backtrack just a little bit. I've been here since 2004, covered 3 NFL teams. I thought I was coming to Alabama for like 1 or 2 years, and then I was going to go cover probably another NFL team. And they hired this guy, named Nick Saban. And it was like, and here's the thing about Saban that 2004, my first season, I'm getting accustomed to the college game. I had covered Arizona State for a couple of years, so it wasn't totally new to me. But I was walking down the sideline of the Alabama-LSU game, and I'm watching the LSU, and LSU, I'm looking at the backup players at this point, and I'm sitting there wondering, how the heck do these guys ever lose a game? It didn't make sense to me. That's how loaded that team was. And so when they got Saban, everything changed, obviously. I mean, it was just watching the transition. And this isn't a knock against Mike Shula. Mike Shula actually did a heck of a job to keep them afloat the way that he did, with the whole probation and everything that was going on. But Julio was he wasn't the first big name that they signed. Actually, the first big name that they signed was a kid named BJ Scott, who they wanted to use as a cornerback. But BJ turned around and he started recruiting other guys. And one of those guys who was trying to get to come to Alabama was Julio Jones. And the second Julio got here, you saw the difference. And I mean, Saban actually yelled at me once because I accidentally called him a starter or somebody changed it in my story. I honestly don't know which one it was. But he got referred to as starter in one of my stories. At that point, I was working for the Tuscaloosa News. And it was during his first camp. He hadn't even played a game yet. And that's a recipe for Saban to go off on you. Basically, it's you got to be proven. You got to earn it kind of thing. Don't assume. But Julio day one just was amazing. And 2010 season, he broke his hand. They were at South Carolina, and his hand got stuck in somebody's jersey. And he goes to the sideline. It was a game that they lost. It was an incredible game. It was the first time USC, I think, had ever beaten a team ranked number one. But he breaks his hand. He goes to the sideline. He tells the strength and conditioning coach, I think I broke my hand. Stays in the game, amazingly. So they figure out that he's got his broken hand. He has surgery. If I remember right, it was before a bye week. The following week, he's in the game against Ole Miss. I think it was Ole Miss. But he had a broken plate, he had a plate in his hand for his broken hand. This is like 10 days after surgery. And he's trying to play. And they had to pull him from the game. They had to keep him from like hurting himself even more. And then the following week after that, I mean, he just looked like Julio again, and he, totally burned somebody. Might have been Tennessee. And it was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And I did a one-on-one interview with him, and I got him to describe, exactly where the plate was and everything about it. And there is no way that he ever should have played in that game. And that, to me, just shows what Julio Jones is about. Trust me, he's got a lot left in the tank. And as soon as you think, oh, he's banged up, he's beat up, he's going to burn you. So some team is going to get incredibly lucky and get a guy that's probably going to be a Pro Bowls type player for at least 3-4 seasons.
Chris, great story. Appreciate you sharing that with us.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Let's get it to the head. That last decade and a half, he had to rebuild the program. Did Coach Saban when he got to Alabama? To say he's done that would be a little bit of an understatement. Championships later, continuous parade of people going into the pros and making Pro Bowls and Hall of Famers like Julio Jones that John recognized earlier. Does he even have to recruit anymore? Does he just go out and go, hey, you want to come to Alabama? Done deal. And you shake their hand. Or does he actually still have to sell the program? Their success almost dictates. All you got to do is say, yeah, you want to come with us? Let's go. And you turn around and you walk out of the room and he's following you. Or does Saban still love the chase of getting that 5-star player to come and put on the crimson?
Yeah, it's they say about Bear Bryant that he could walk into someone's room and basically say, you're coming to Alabama, and the recruiting process was over for that kid. Saban, though, it's kind of in – I don't want to say it's in that quite at that level yet, but here's the thing that people don't get about Nick Saban, and this is a huge reason why he's as good as he is. He loves recruiting. He loves it as much as coaching in a game. And, the collegiate level especially – that's incredibly rare. You find a lot of coaches who are either exceptional at the game part of it, or they're great at recruiting. To find that guy who is just as passionate about both, that doesn't come along very often. And the NCAA actually passed rules to try to slow him down in recruiting because he was just so aggressive and he was so good at it. And it's. The other coaches were like, hey, it's the offseason. We want to go on vacation. We want to have a little downtime. And Nick is off, recruiting all over the place, showing up at places like with helicopters to impress kids. And that was really one of the only ways that they could try to slow him down and compete with him. He is just relentless, and he is nonstop. And I know everyone's kind of like, okay, he's getting up in age, right? Yeah, he hasn't slowed down at all. He's still going, still loves it, and I don't know how much left he's got. I don't think the decision's going to be his on when he steps down. I think it's going to be his wife's. I think at some point she's going to be like, Nick, you're done.
It's like Will Chamberlain in basketball, Bob Gibson in baseball. When they start changing the rules to deal with you, you know you're pretty good at your job. But
yeah.
Chris at BamaCentral.com. Are you on book number 20 yet? How many books have you written?
26.
26.
Yeah.
Wow. So what is the latest one?
What is the latest one? I'm trying to think. I've got one. I've got one I know that's going to be done eventually. But it's just we're kind of waiting on the timing and to figure all that out. Actually, I've got two probably in that respect. But the last book I did was called Decade of Dominance. It was a couple years ago, and it made the case that the decade that ended a couple years ago was the greatest decade that we'll ever see in college football. And then, of course, Alabama turned around and won the national championship. So, I did this book, 100 things Crimson Tide fans have to know and do before they die. We've remade the book twice, and it gets outdated every couple of years. So, it's hard to do a book on Alabama and in the success of their saving because he's going to top it like 2 years later.
And by the way, the Eagles are finally in on it. They had not picked an Alabama player since 2002.
Yeah,
Freddie. Before you got there, Chris, and now they finally figured it out. Just take the Alabama guys.
It sounds to me like you're writing Alabama books. It's kind of like Nick Saban in recruiting. Just got to do it. It's not really that hard. It's not hard work. Just open up the page and it kind of writes itself. Alabama, 100 things you got to know. Here's 100 more because they just keep doing this stuff for you.
Well, last year we did a series on Bama Central on the 100 greatest players of the Nick Saban era. And it was basically you had to be an All-American pretty much to make the team, which just – it's just ridiculous. And then this last group came through, and I know at some point I'm going to turn it into a book. And it's so I'm already kind of like, okay, where does Devonta Smith, fit in, and kind of asking those questions, or even somebody like Jalen Hurts, because they would definitely be in the list. Landon Dickerson would be on the list, and we're going to have an honorable mention section, and it's going to be 20 guys.
We're hoping that they fit in very well here in Philadelphia, and we think that's going to be the case. Chris, you fit in well with us. We will get you back on when next you got the next 100 to add to your latest Alabama book. We'll be glad to have you back on again. Thanks for hopping on with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys, and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
You do the same. Chris Walsh from Sports Illustrated covers the Alabama Crimson Tide. Yes, about time Philadelphia tap into the greatness that has been Alabama on the collegiate level. All right, Mac and Mac guys coming back. We'll put a bow on the show, wrap up both a week and a month here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.